Mr. Ozzie Newsome, welcome back to Tuscaloosa. I hope you're doing well, sir.
I'm doing very good. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. I mean, just celebrating another national title. Nick Saban's giving us another one in T-Town.
Yeah, I was there to enjoy it. You know, that was some overtime, and what a great throw by that kid and a great catch, you know. So it was fun walking out of that stadium that night.
You ever think we would get to the level? I mean, let me just say it slow. 5 out of the last 9 years, Nick Saban in Alabama has been a national champ. That's even hard to say.
And we are, within 4 or 5 seconds from having another one. You know, I have a lot of respect for Nick and the way he's built the program. But, you know, in Alabama, that's basically what we expect. You know, year in and year out, we expect to be playing for a national championship, and that's why a lot of those kids come to Tuscaloosa.
Ozzie, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a chance to spend a lot of time with your friend. We had him for 3 hours and 15 minutes on this program. He kept telling Coach Bryant stories. We were live there on location in Birmingham, and we had a chance to feature Johnny Davis. And I know you are very close friends with Johnny, and we had a chance to pay respect for what he was able to accomplish here at the University of Alabama. Help us understand Johnny Davis from your perspective.
Well, number one, we both were got recruited together in 1974. I think when I agreed to sign with Alabama, John Mitchell left my house, said he was going to Montgomery to work on Johnny, and he was able to accomplish that. And then we came to orientation right before we used to have the high school all-star game, and we hit it off as friends. We happened to be playing on opposite teams in the all-star game, and I think the first time he carried the ball, I was just happened to be playing defense, and we ran into each other in the hole, and he said he changed my career, and I said I knocked him back. So we still haven't resolved that issue, but we've been friends since that point. And I've been in his weddings. You know, he's been right there beside me for all of those years. And, you know, when he was a player at Alabama, you know, it began and ended with him because, you know, the fullback was the focal point of the wishbone. And, you know, people would do things to stop Johnny, and that would free me up to be able to get behind the defense and make plays.
You look at Johnny Davis, and we were just talking about college football and what he was able to accomplish. You look at that fullback position, you know, you try to describe 1,000 yards in a season with Johnny Davis. I mean, he toted the rock quite a bit in that season.
Well, yeah, like I said, when you were running the wishbone, the triple option, it started with the fullback. That was always the first read. And if people didn't take that away, then we would just continue to feed the fullback. And then sometime if you talk to Richard Todd or Stedman Shealy or Jeff Lawless, Johnny would just take the ball from him and go ahead and run up in there. But, you know, he was the engine that drove the train. The fullback in the wishbone has that responsibility, and Johnny did a very good job of that. And then once he got into the secondary, he was a load to tackle. Nobody really wanted to tackle him.
Yeah, he was telling us that he gave free rides to secondary members, defensive backs.
Yes, he did. You know, those are the free rides from the guys that waited till he ran by and then wanted to jump on his back instead of trying to face him up and tackle him.
On our Throwback Thursday segments presented by Spiller Furniture Mattress, we're talking with General Manager for the Baltimore Ravens, Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie, what's next? I know that you went through your final draft there for the Baltimore Ravens, and you're going to be doing some other things. Talk about what's next for Ozzie Newsome.
Well, basically, I'm still going to be doing the same thing. You know, what we did is at the end of the 2018 season, we'll transition where Eric will be basically responsible for the 53-man squad, which I've had for 22, 23 years now. But then I'll be working right there next to him, just like he worked right next to me. And eventually, you know, at some point I'll wean myself away from it, but I'll be still here in the office, still watching tape, still going to Senior Bowl, still going to the Combine, still doing everything that I've done for the last 20-some years. I just don't have the authority of the 53. It's time for Eric to have that.
You've been, obviously, you love those Alabama players, and you got a couple of those this year with Anthony Averett. And I know you evaluate the way that you do, and it comes up, and you got an Alabama guy there. You took Anthony Averett, which is a quality individual. I really enjoyed getting to know Anthony here at the University of Alabama. But talk about your decision there.
Well, we got into the fourth round. We had been concentrating on getting some offensive players. But what we found out, when we drafted Marlon a year ago, you can never have too many corners. We ended up getting 3 corners hurt. And, thank God we drafted Marlon. So we got into the fourth round. And basically, Anthony was our highest-rated guy. We had he and the linebacker from UCLA, and we felt like, let's take the corner first because we had some other linebackers that we liked. And we took Anthony. And I immediately got some texts from some people that were close to the program to say that, he'll end up being a starter for you. And the thing about Anthony, and talking with Coach Saban, he was a quarterback in high school, and he never played defense. So he had to transform and make that transition over to the other side. And he's done a very good job. He's also the nephew of a player that we had here when we won our last Super Bowl, in Brian McKinney. So we decided to bring Anthony in, and then 3 picks later, the linebacker that we wanted was still on the board, and we was able to get him also.
Let me ask you, when you go and you look at an Alabama guy, because you also picked up Bradley Bozeman, which is an Alabama-born guy, grew up wanting to play for the Crimson Tide, came here, worked his butt off, was able to really anchor that offensive line. Is going to be a leader that we're going to have to replace in 2018. But you went with Bradley Bozeman there in the 6th round, pick number 41 in that 6th round.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? We lack some depth at center. Eric had watched him at the Senior Bowl, just as I had the opportunity, and then we watched him. When we were evaluating the bowl and Calvin Ridley. So he's a big guy. He has his size, and that's what we like here in Baltimore. We like the guys with size, but he understands how to play the game. And then he comes in right now starting as a backup with a chance to be a starter based on how well he progressed over the next 4 or 5 months.
Let me ask you, when you call Coach Saban or when you try to do evaluation, I don't want you to get in those private conversations, but what is those conversations like when you try to call a former coach and try to get information about a certain player?
Well, I mean, Nick and mine's relationship go back to the 4 years we worked together in Cleveland. So we speak the same language. And so when I'm talking to him about player, then he's very frank, what the strengths and the weaknesses of the players are and how he thinks they fit. And I respect his evaluation of the players, but he also can talk about their habits off the field, what type of kids they are. So all of that goes into my thought process when I'm, thinking about a player. And, I'm around the program some, not a great deal. But just when I can talk to him, it's like, two people. It's no different than when he and I were working for Bill in Cleveland, and we're sitting there in an evaluation meeting about our players. We talk the same language, and he's very frank, with the positives and the negatives.
How much is it when you look at an Alabama player, because the way that you evaluate him, do you get something more for coming through this system and playing at the University of Alabama, knowing the expectations that Coach Saban places on his players? Is that worth more to a GM?
Well, it's if you just look at the 2 corners that we've taken, I mean, Marlon and Anthony got schooled by Amari Cooper, who's had a successful career. They had to cover Calvin Ridley. So every day they go out to practice, they're practicing with guys that are going to be playing in the NFL, and it's probably going to be playing at a very high level. And then the way the program is set up is if you don't perform and you don't do the things that you have to do on and off the field in the classroom, then there's somebody right there knocking on your door ready to take your position. So you got to play at a high level all the time. But, they become very accountable when they have those situations like that. And the other aspect of it, basically when we get a chance to interview the players from Alabama, a lot of people can have a BS or a master's degree. When you talk to the players from Alabama, it's like they got a PhD in their position or how the scheme works. It's unbelievable the way they understand the game, and they take that understanding and apply it. So those are the things that you get. It's just, especially from us from a defensive standpoint, because we run similar defense that Nick runs, is that they already know the terminology. And it's unbelievable to sit in an interview when we do it at the combine and listen at the Alabama players talk through it. And now Kirby's doing the same thing at Georgia, because we interviewed, Raekwon Smith and some of those other guys, and he's got the same program working over at Georgia right now.
Ozzie, when you look at Nick Saban, you talk about those 4 years that you spent with him. How much NFL do you see in what Nick Saban does here in Tuscaloosa, running this organization with attention to detail, from strength conditioning, nutrition, training? I mean, it's like an NFL organization when you walk in that building.
It is. It's no doubt. Everything they do from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed is basically the way that we do things, except that they have to go to class and our guys don't. And we don't have a 20-hour rule, and they do a good job of managing that 20-hour rule to make sure that players understand. But you know what? You go there and you watch 9-on-7. Not many teams do 9-on-7 anymore. So his practices is just like an NFL practice.
Help me with 9-on-7. I'm a media guy. I'm a media guy.
That's a run drill where it's just a tight end and a running back, a fullback, and the offensive lineman versus the 7 defensive players. The 4 down linemen and the 3 linebackers. That's what we call 9-on-7. But it's a drill that's all run. It's a great way to work on your run game. It's a great way to work on your run defense.
Ozzie, how often do you catch yourself doing things daily in your management of people there in the Baltimore Ravens organization that Coach Bryant taught you?
Every day. I mean, his picture is behind me and to the side of me every day, and it begins with, he never wanted us to be complacent. And he said, you know what, you got to work every day to get, 10% better. Every day you can work, just to get to 10%, which is a lot, but you're shooting for that. But the other thing is to make sure all of the people around you are doing just as good a job as you are. And sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of yours to make sure everybody else is doing their job,
Ozzie, coming out of high school, and I know we talked about it earlier, but coming out of Colbert County High School there and close to Muscle Shoals, I mean, you ever think about what you've been able to accomplish? I mean, your dreams of playing at the University of Alabama, you're a Hall of Famer. You ever just step back and look at the credentials we're proud of your success here in Tuscaloosa and being a part of the Alabama family, but you ever have a chance to reflect on those memories? And
very little, because it's all about what I can do tomorrow. The script has not been written yet.
You sound like Nick Saban, Ozzie. You sound just like Nick Saban. I mean, we asked him about a championship, and he's talking about what we're working about next year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now, I want nothing no better than for us to be standing on that stage in Atlanta, holding up that Super Bowl trophy. So every day that I get up and come to work, that's what I have in my mind. Right now, watching tape as I am, of players that we might have to acquire sometime between now and the beginning of the season. So looking back does me no good. Just looking forward, makes my day go a lot smoother, and I look forward to it every day.
Final question. What does a guy like Lamar Jackson bring to your organization?
Well, obviously, he's a very dynamic athlete. Won the Heisman, went to Louisville because it was going to be a pro-style offense, and he wanted to start from scratch with that. But the other thing is that he has all of the intangibles that you look for a guy that's playing the position. And it's going to be interesting to watch him develop over the next couple of years. Can he get to the point that he's playing at a level that we expect him to play, but also that he expects to play at? So it's going to be interesting watching him.
Ozzie, thank you again for spending us time talking Alabama football. We want to get you on, obviously, to help us talk about Johnny Davis for a couple of minutes, talk about Coach Bryant, Nick Saban. Thank you again for making time for us here in Tuscaloosa. We greatly appreciate the conversation.
Well, good. I always enjoy talking with people down there, and I look forward. I'm going to be able to come to the Mississippi State game this year, so I look forward to that.
Hey, no doubt. Thank you, Ozzie. Have a great afternoon, sir.
And you do the same.